What is going on, everyone? Welcome back to the most inconsistently posted coffee podcast show ever. The Actually Good Coffee podcast. It's Labor Day. I'm not going to give excuses. Let's just go over the numbers. For the third and fourth weeks of August 2023, we sold 755 pounds of coffee in week 3 and 834 pounds of coffee in week 4. For 2024, week 3 and 4, and week 3, we sold 1,023 pounds of coffee, and in week 4, we sold 1,064 pounds of coffee. We're on a roll. All right. Why has the volume increased so much this time of year? Well, I think in part it has to do with Labor Day. This is usually a really busy time of the year for coffee shops. Obviously, in comparison with last year's numbers, it's still quite a bit more by about more than 200 pounds on average. We picked up a couple new clients. That obviously adds on to more volume. And it just seems like pretty much all of our clients have been doing more volume in total. Because it's the end of the month, we're going to go over the average per week for the month of August. In 2023, we averaged 726 pounds of coffee sold per week. If we're looking at 2024's numbers, we averaged 949 pounds of coffee sold per week. That's like, what is that, 20%? That's like a 30% increase from last year. Big numbers, always a good sign, always happy to increase. Let's move on to today's episode so I don't inflate my own ego. So today we're going to be talking about direct trade coffee and why it's not just a marketing ploy, it's also a sign of good business. This article comes from Coffee Intelligence. Love these guys. Sarah Charles writes this article. But what is fair trade? Fair trade is the effort made by the coffee roaster in order to establish a relationship with the farms who supply them with green coffee. The goal is to strengthen the tie within the coffee supply chain to establish a promotion of environmental, social, and economic sustainability of coffee production. Where have we heard that one before? If you've guessed regenerative organic certification, you would be correct. Like we've talked about in the past, that ROC certification is looking to encompass all of these smaller certifications that you'll find, whether it's bird-friendly, organic, Rainforest Alliance, fair trade, female-owned, things like that. Established in the 1990s, it has recently gained prominence in the technical and scientific literature, but studies and discussion on the topic are still superficial and fragmented. Sarah writes, despite its good intentions, it quickly became a go-to form of marketing for many, more flexible and less costly than certification. It was a way to stand out on the shelves and provide consumers with the vague assurance that the product was somehow directly connected to producers and therefore ethically sourced. A big jump with little accountability. What happens with a lot of these certifications within the coffee industry, obviously brands are looking to stand out. And in order to do so, you want to do it with the least amount of effort possible, which is unfortunate because that seems to be the trend. Personally, I think that this comes to light one way or another. People are able to see past the bullshit of putting these marketing ploys within your branding. Coffee brands have become so personable. It's easy to spot which brands actually care and have the relationships with the farms and are able to pay these guys a fair wage so that they're able to support their families and continue to prosper in their business. Mayorga Coffee pioneered many of the concepts that are under the umbrella of what we now know as direct trade, Sarah writes. In the mid-90s, the company was one of the first coffee roasters to ever focus on working directly with coffee producers. So these guys were like one of the first companies that paved the way for these certifications and the type of marketing that's going on within the industry today. I think it's unfortunate that the coffee industry has taken the basic concept of knowing who their suppliers are and turned it into marketing, says Martin Mayorga, founder and CEO of Mayorga Coffee. Mayorga Coffee is based out of, is it Colombia? I believe it's multiple origins within Latin America. Martin continues to say, like most buzzword terms that the industry latches onto, direct trade is a vague premise with no agreed upon definition. Some roasters think that seeing a producer's name on the bag they bought from a multinational direct trader and talking about that producer is enough. Others think it's going to a farm once a year and taking pictures. As a Latino who grew up in Latin America, I've grown to resent this type of performative marketing. He really comes for the throat. I'm laughing because I've used this this technique on one of the bags of coffee that we've sold in the past. If you remember the Faber Pacheco, the single origin coffee that we sell, it's from this micro lot in Colombia with Cosecha Traders that we actually have a growing relationship that we're looking to build upon. But we do have a relationship with these guys. We actually have started using other farms, other micro lots that are part of that collective in our primary blend, which is one of our proprietary blends. It does a lot more in volume than obviously our single origin lots do, and we're actually looking to build upon that relationship. And what they're finding with these certifications or these ethical labels is that there is a market for them. Consumers are willing to spend more money. I think it's about 80% of consumers are willing to spend more money on their coffee if it has one of these ethical labels. Essentially, there is a market for it. Sarah writes, through direct trade relationships, roasters can navigate challenges, optimize costs, secure reliable sources of high quality coffee, and differentiate themselves in a competitive market by offering unique and traceable coffee experiences to consumers. So for Made in Coffee, it's getting increasingly more difficult to stand out amongst your competition. The easiest way to do that is by offering these really unique, sometimes experimental coffees that you're not usually going to find in your average coffee shop. What some of these larger farms are starting to do is offer these really artisanal lots to their partners that have been buying coffee from them for a long period of time. It's like a way of saying thank you for giving us the financial security to experiment in the ways that we do. That seems to be the method that a lot of these farms are using. So in order for me to contract a lot of these unique coffees from farms, it's best to work with farms that are willing to be a bit experimental in their processing methods or just farming techniques overall. It's a considerably easy way to add uniqueness into your coffee offerings. Like, I'm not going to be able to buy certain coffees with these larger farms that are able to do these experimental lots because I don't have a history with them. I haven't been buying coffee in a large volume from them in the past so that they feel comfortable to give me these like secret recipes that they're not really opening up to the public. It's only to these roasters that have been buying from them within a long period of time. And it makes sense, right? Like, if they scratch your back, you want to scratch theirs. And this is a pretty great way of doing so. Ultimately, the last point that this article talks about is that these partnerships will likely emphasize accountability, shared value creation, and continuous innovation, underscoring the notion that direct trade isn't just charity, it's good business. So yes, this is another emphasis on why it can be beneficial for you to create these relationships with farms. I think this is a pretty fair argument for all business in general. If you're consistently buying from the suppliers for your product, they're going to look for ways to get creative in offering you a unique product on top of what you're already buying, just as more incentive to continue to grow in your relationship with these guys. Obviously, I'm sure there are financial benefits to that as well. If you can guarantee that you're going to purchase a certain amount of volume from these farms for the future because you know their product is reliable and you've been working with them for a long time, that's something that they can rely on. It's not so up in the air on whether they're going to get a paycheck this harvest season. They know that they can rely on you, and it takes a little bit of the stress out of the situation and maybe allows them to free up their time and focus on other routes that they can go and their coffee processing methods or their different types of varietals they might try to incorporate within their offering. So there's multiple reasons why that this is good business. It's not just charity work, it's good business. Direct trade is just one of the foundational ones that definitely sticks out within the coffee market. So thank you guys for listening. I really appreciate you tuning in, and I will hopefully talk to you guys again very soon. It's been hectic. It's going to slow down. I promise I'll be more on top of my posting schedule.